As most of you know, I'm not an ambulance chasing channel. I don't really like to discuss tragedies because I think tragedies are happening everywhere and there's no reason to focus on them. And I don't want to be like the mainstream media where I give a verdict about something and then it turns out that there was more information that I wasn't aware of coming up and it would completely change my opinion on something. So I really try to stay away from those. But recently, a lot of people from the United States, they keep asking me like what I think about the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. And as I mentioned before, I'm looking at a picture and I'm like, wow, $2 a gallon? Like, this was 2 years ago, $2 a gallon? Are you kidding me? Why is my life have gotten so expensive? I don't have a car, but I purchase groceries and my parents barely have enough money from one month to the next. $2 a gallon. Wow. So that was like my first impression when looking at it. But if you want me to tell you what I think about the case, I think it can be summarized in just 1 minute of video footage.
With your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
You had, with your arms up in the
Now, I'm not an expert in body language, and because of that, my opinion doesn't really matter. Because we live in a time where only the experts get to say things in a society, only the authoritative forces get to say. So maybe CNN can bring up an expert that knows body language and can tell us what the prosecution is thinking right now. It's a little bit above my pay grade. I don't know. I trust the authoritative sources and the fact checkers. So maybe someone can fact check this from Politico and tell me what does the prosecution has to say. What are they thinking right now? Because right now the only controversy that exists is on the Twitter. Like you're going to see people with roses, with the flower brigade, and the hammer and the sickle and the bio and the black flags, the pirates, and they're all saying it's like, oh yes, but why did Kyle have the gun? And I'm like, okay, you do realize that the other person was a convicted felon and he didn't have a right to carry, and yet he also had the gun and aimed it at Kyle, who then and only then defended himself. Because if you haven't been following yet, the entire lawsuit is whether this was self-defense or not. And from what I've seen and the expression of the prosecution as well as the expression of the defense team, it could possibly be self-defense. It might be. I don't want to say anything to upset the YouTube algorithm or anything like that. Don't want to pronounce myself before the verdict. But from my inexperienced opinion, I do think that the jury might not find the defendant guilty in this situation. Now, if that were to happen, I hope that we see Facebook issuing an apology. Because Facebook, through their own terms of service, have decided to ban anyone that said anything neutral. Okay, like not even positive, neutral about Kyle. So any type of thing that you'd have said, like if you were to go back last year on Facebook and you'd have said, I think this was self-defense, you'd have been zooked on Facebook. I know people who have been zooked just because they said, yeah, this looks like self-defense to me. No. So only the article saying that he was a murderer got promoted. This is unacceptable in my opinion. And you know what? This is slanderous and libelous. This doesn't actually defend the social media company Facebook from a lawsuit. Because they're defended on things that are posted, right? They're a platform. So if someone posts their opinion, Facebook isn't responsible for that. But this is not someone posting their opinion. This is Facebook's editorial guidelines. And this is why this case actually interests me. Because it shows the discourse on social media. 2 years ago, if you'd have gotten on Facebook and you didn't know anything about what happened, you'd think that this guy is the child of hell. Like, he's the child of Satan doing all the bad things over there. Because anyone that would say anything negatively would be banned. So you got the false illusion you'd have been manipulated into not having all of the events. You'd have literally been pushed misinformation, or at least lack of information, lack of context, lack of what's going on. I've been following this lawsuit. Like, apparently the guy was there with the medkit healing people. I didn't know about that. Why? Because I was reading Facebook. So yeah, I mean, it's just like the Covington kids. I think there might be a little bit of legal repercussions to be had here. Because it's unacceptable, okay? Put yourself in that situation. Like, let's say you defend yourself. You know, you're doing self-defense. And then, like, social media decides to ban what you're saying. You're not allowed to raise money on GoFundMe because, again, ideological reasons. Absolutely absurd. I think that there might be a lawsuit here. So hopefully we're going to see what's going to happen if Kyle gets a self-defense claim. Because otherwise, imagine what type of world would this be. Imagine your mother is walking on the street and a mugger attacks her and she has access to pepper spray. So she manages to pepper spray the mugger and runs away. But then on social media, your mother is guilty of assault. Like, everyone that says your mother has hurted that innocent mugger gets promoted, and anyone that says, like, hold on a little bit, like, doesn't she have a right to defend herself? I mean, the guy brought the problem to her. Like, sure, and then you have people on social media that's like, oh, but why was she carrying pepper spray? It's like, really? Is that the problem? But it's up to the jury, I suppose. But I would like to say that the prosecution, I have never seen a worse prosecutor than this. I mean, all the witnesses that the prosecution brought just BTFO'd the prosecution. Like, how does that happen? Like, do you not get to talk with your witnesses beforehand? You don't know what they're going to say? Because they're your witnesses. Like, the prosecution brought those witnesses. They could just talk with them and ask them. It's like, hey, what happened? Like, tell me in your words. And if the witness says, well, I had my hands up and I didn't get shot, but when I reached for my gun and I pointed at him, then I got shot, then the prosecution would be like, okay, I see. And with that in mind, you either don't get the witness if you're a shady prosecutor, or you just drop the charges. There shouldn't be a middle. You don't get that witness and you put him on the stand. It makes you look like an imbecile. It makes you look like you knew all of that, and yet you decided to waste the court's time with these frivolous charges. Maybe the prosecutor got his information from Facebook. I mean, why bother looking at official documents when you have fact checkers and authoritative sources on Facebook? Clearly, Facebook is the light of truth. Clearly, what happens there is the only possible explanation. So he looked on Facebook, he got all of his info from there, and now he's embarrassing himself in court. Maybe this is what's real. You know, maybe Facebook is now endangering the legal system with his fact checkers and his authoritative sources. You have prosecutors that get their info from Facebook because they believe it's so secure. Like, what are you doing? No wonder the prosecutor keeps looking at their phone. Maybe they're filing resumes for other jobs. Maybe they're scheduling interviews for other jobs. Because clearly, being a prosecutor in this situation is shameful. I mean, he's probably the laughing stock of his colleagues right now. And by the way, it's every single witness. Like, every single witness the prosecution has brought forward, it seemed as if the defense was bringing that witness. I've never seen this happen in a lawsuit before, like, ever. It doesn't make any sense. You know, I have seen a lot of shady shit when I was at law school, but this is beyond it. Like, you know, again, just so you can understand, you know what the witness has to say, right? You get time to talk with him. Why would you bring him to the stand? Imagine if a lawyer would do this to you. Like, you ask a lawyer to represent you, and he brings up witnesses that accuse you. Like, you would fire that lawyer in a bit. No one would hire that lawyer ever again. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, are you defending my case or what? So it's really bewildering, baffling, watching this from the outside. But I suppose it's because I didn't do a law school in the United States. I haven't studied common law. So it must be a new way of doing justice that exists in the US, which is quite foreign to my little Romanian brain from here in Eastern Europe. I just don't get it. Like, I don't know the plan. Maybe the prosecutor will have a plan. You know, maybe it's like in one of those movies with lawyers where it seems that they're going to lose, but in the last moment they go like, and they frame it in a different way and it overthrows the entire case. Maybe we're going to see that happening. I don't know. But until then, I'm going to watch this with express interest. Let me know what you guys think, and if you want to support this channel, consider getting some buyer's remorse from the pinned comment in the comment section. And I'll see you guys later. Take care.